a little quieter and more relaxing up here. Now all the wood processing has been done downstairs, and the materials are being brought upstairs now. Here we've got a book-matched pair of East Indian rosewood. You can still see a little bit of singeing from the laser cutting to get the profile for the top and the back, the curved surface being the back, the flat surface being the top. And these book-matched pairs are going to go into the bending iron and cook for about 4 to 5 minutes at about 400+ degrees. Very quickly, we want to get these materials glued up into a rim, and we have an ingenious fixture to do that. The fixture enables us to work flat with the top side down and get the two halves of the rim perfectly aligned on center line with their front blocks and their rear blocks. So these traditional hand bending irons are heated with rheostats. In the olden days, they actually used coals from the fire and then later on gas, but now we use electricity, of course. The rheostats enable the irons to be heated using a heating element inside a tube to get them up to about 400 degrees. And hand bending is done across the irons by rocking the wood and then checking it carefully against a template. So the front block is made of genuine mahogany and will eventually be cut into the traditional dovetail. Right now it's just a mortise. Here you can see this is one of the front blocks for the Eric Clapton 000 2080C, an extremely popular model. Here's one from the Crosby, Stills and Nash model that is in memory of Jerry Tolman, their manager. All of these blocks, and here's a 000 42 marquee, all of these blocks are laser burned. So now we have a completed rim glued up with its front block and its rear block. Both blocks have a slight contour on them to match the contour of the guitar. And like I said, the dovetail will be now cut and exposed. The trick with bracing is to have just enough to support the extreme amount of tension that's pulling on the top, trying to cave the guitar in half. The guitar is very weak at the sound hole, and that's why the Martin X bracing pattern is so successful, because it uses a scissors brace that distributes all of the pressure pulling on the top onto the shoulders of the guitar without jeopardizing the sound hole area, which, as I said, is very weak. So the trick is to have just the right amount of bracing, not too much. Too much bracing, actually very common on other brands of guitars. Heavy bracing produces a very dead, dull tonality. Bracing that is too light would jeopardize the strength and longevity of the top. So Martin bracing walks that line between strength and tone. It's light and hand scalloped, scalloping referring to these concave cuts in the braces which liven up a top. The bridge plate supports the bridge area. But like I said, the intention here is to walk the borderline between strength and tone. So this is the ribbon lining. It's made from Spanish cedar. It has kind of a cigar box or a pencil sharpener odor to it. It's what gives the guitar the wonderful odor that comes out of the sound hole. It's very difficult to make this part. These saw cuts have to be made so that they almost go through, but not quite. That's what enables the piece to bend. And the lining is one of the most critical parts of the guitar in respect to the transference of tone from the vibrations of the top through the sides and into the back. Without the ribbon lining, we would have no surface upon which to glue the top and the back. And it's a delicate and important piece of the guitar. And Dave, you've been here how many years?
This coming year on July 11th be 41.
41 years. 41 years for Dave. Great employee, probably the best ribboner in the world. You know, this job has traditionally been done with clothespins, and we just haven't found any better way to do the job. So it's kind of old world technology here, but the clothespins set the ribbon lining in place. Here's an Eric Clapton model. And once the ribbon is glued, then the rim is complete, ready for the top and back to be hand fit. So this is an older wooden mold. We had many hundreds of these dating back into the 1800s. Some of them are in the museum. Some are stored over at North Street, and we still use some of them. This is an orchestra model mold, probably dating back to the 1930s and 40s. So this is one of our modern molds. It's a die-cast aluminum mold. It has a certain amount of weight to it, and the weight is purposeful because we want the mold to exert pressure onto the disc sanders that will prepare the surfaces of the top and the back. The top of a Martin guitar is in effect flat from the bottom of the guitar to the waist, and then it dives downhill at about a 1.5 degree angle to allow for the neck fit. The back of the guitar is arched in 2 different directions, this way longitudinally and laterally with the curvature of the back braces. And I think this is one of the critical aspects of Martin tone, is the fact that the guitar is sprung or spring-loaded so that when a player plucks a string, it sets everything into motion. The gluing of the top and the back to the rim involve very careful routing of the ribbon lining to accept the ends of the main structural braces. This ties the guitar beautifully together tonally, enabling the vibrations of the top to merge into the back and sides. So the first thing that is done to the rim is that small router cuts are made into the lining to accept the main structural braces. After which glue is applied, everything is very carefully fit, and the top and back are actually glued on. Once the top and back are in position, the assembly of the top and back in the mold are put into a heated fixture that is actually an air bladder the air is inflated and exerts just the right amount of pressure to keep the top and the back glued. And this is a heated form like the bracing platens. The heat helps the glue cure quickly. We prepare the fingerboards off of the guitar. They have tooling holes which locate them to the neck assembly. And the frets have been pre-prepared and are pre-crowned and all set to go. Tapped lightly into place and then set into place using a arbor press, which exerts just the right amount of tension on the fingerboard to seat each fret perfectly.
Okay, they're going to take a neck blank, insert the adjustable truss rod, put the fingerboard on that's already been fretted. The locator points will make sure that's true so the guitar plays in tune. And a glue on the fingerboard, glue on the heel cap, and it goes again in a neck press.
So this is called the phrasing department. Phrasing is actually a German word. We've had trouble finding it in the dictionary, but we believe it means to trim an edge. Basically what they're doing here is trimming the edges of the top and the back to accept the binding and inlay. The binding is the outer piece. The inlay is usually black, white, or pearl, and it is inset into the binding so that our bindings actually go around the edge, like an L shape. So it's a very delicate cut, enabled by many different little wheels that are dimensioned for us. And the binding serves the purpose of protecting the edge of the guitar from dents, sealing off the end grain from moisture, and it also provides the primary decoration for each instrument. In the event that we are going to use pearl inlay, we will glue into the binding a piece of Teflon that doesn't adhere to the glue. And the Teflon can then be peeled out of the binding after the fact so that the pearl pieces can be inset. This is a custom guitar that's getting a fairly standard top binding, but it has a pearl rosette and what looks to be a special top. So the binding is set perfectly into place and taped using masking tape, and it'll dry overnight before it's sanded. He's using a file, and for the waist of the guitar, we use what's called a riffler, a little bent file. And we want to get this dimension perfectly before we do the glue up. So that's what's happening here. While we found that the masking tape really does a very effective job of gluing and clamping the binding while the glue dries, the old method is to wrap the guitar and mummify it, and we still do that on a lot of different models, especially cutaway models like this custom guitar. So this is Susan Cummins, and she's one of our best neck fitters. She's working on an Eric Clapton 00028 EC, one of our most popular models. And the trick here is to first undercut the neck so that it adheres to the contour of the body, and then by removing very slight amounts of material from both sides of the neck, you can throw a neck off center or onto center, We want it on center. We also have to pitch the neck back, and this is what she's doing here. She's setting the pitch of the neck back so that the bridge height is exactly right, and this is one of the most difficult jobs that we do here. If a neck fit is done correctly, theoretically you could probably string the guitar up without any glue and it would hold. So having checked that, she knows that she needs to throw the neck back just a little bit. Did you need to throw it to one side more than the other?
No, actually it was right on.
It was right on center. So she's trying to not disturb the center line while setting the pitch back a little bit. And she'll check it a second time, or a third time, or a fourth time, but she's pretty good at this, so 2 times and you've got it? The difficulty is that there are so many critical surfaces to this dovetail, it's very confusing. It took me several years to even comprehend what I was doing with the chisel for this job, and I still can't do it very well. Come on through. So we don't want any wobble in the neck fit at all. Center line, perfect. Neck pitch. We have several different heights of bridges, but we want to fit the neck here for a medium-sized bridge. Great use for a Kaiser capo to hold the tongue of the fingerboard down. A little more adjustment here. I don't know if you noticed, but she's slipped a little piece of brass that is about the thickness of our lacquer. And that brass is there to give us a little bit of an offset for the heel cap, because the body of the guitar is going to be hand scraped along the binding, which is going to change the dimension. So she's trimmed the heel cap area, and using a paring knife, it's going to match up the heel cap to the back binding perfectly. And the brass, I don't want to get cut here. The little piece of brass will just give us an offset so that the heel cap will match up perfectly with the back binding. After this job is done, the neck and the body are no longer interchangeable. And they're going to be given a code number that matches up so that this body and this neck only will be paired together after lacquering. Lacquering, of course, happens separately, the neck and body as 2 pieces. And now the heel cap can be fit and glued. There's enough different aspects to this job that I consider it the hardest job in the plant. That's why we want only the most brilliant and intelligent people working on this, right? After lacquer, that'll fit perfectly. Now these are going to be separated and sent through lacquering and brought back together at the very end. Thanks. So Susan's grandfather, Earl Hartzell, photographed here in 1925. He was one of our great workers, and see, he was working on a batch of ukuleles and a batch of Koa-topped Hawaiian guitars. We have a lot of situations where fathers and grandfathers and uncles and aunts and sisters and cousins work in the factory.